walk in the room as I'm talking, and I'm just gonna continue talking here, so walk into the room, somebody, and you'll notice that my voice sound will kind of be ever so slightly deadened.
Carpet on the wall.
And there's carpet on the walls, and then also, since we're daytime, if we were to turn this light, go ahead and turn that light off. You'll notice it's much darker. This door had a sign that you flip back and forth, so if it was male or female. When we came on site, one of the responsibilities that the facility manager would have had to have done was to brief us, and I recall him saying, please make sure you know who's in the bathroom before you go in there. If it says female, do not go in. Some interesting things about the day room is you have the cook and the eating area. The cook served 4 meals, breakfast, lunch, supper, and then there was a midnight meal. So when I stayed over here at that time, I was here well after supper, so I had what was called midnight chow, and I just ordered whatever it was they had on the menu. I particularly, in my time, they had foil pecks. I liked their spaghetti. For lunch, I liked, I think it was called a chef's salad, you know, the old lettuce from when they made back in the day. This is before spinach was a thing, I think. So when I was a deputy, I was going out on alert. I was an instructor, so it was called a split alert. I was with a squadron commander, or a squadron missile combat crew commander. We had already gone and talked to the cook. Since we're at a site, it's about 10:30. We went to the cook and ordered lunch before we went downstairs to change over. And the commander was talking, his name is Joe. So Joe's talking to the crew, and when we get into the room, I'll show you what the phone he was on. I was standing right about here. I had gotten a pop out of this pop machine, not this one in particular, but one that looked just like it. And I was standing right here at the door, and I was at a site called Golf 01 up at Malmstrom. And the design or the decor that you see on this wall was very similar to where I was at Golf 01. It was January 1986. The alert response team was sitting on the couch. They were watching TV, and they were watching the news, and it was a space shuttle launch. And they're like, Lieutenant, you should sit here and watch a space shuttle launch. And I'm like, wow, it's just another space shuttle launch, no big deal. So I'm turning around to go, and they're like, it's launching, you should watch. So I turned around and I watched it, and a few minutes after that, it exploded. It was Challenger. So I could tell you where I was when the Challenger exploded. Not a laughing matter, but it kind of gives you an idea. I yelled back to Joe, I said, the space shuttle just blew up. And his response to me was, I know. I'm talking to the crew, and they're saying, get downstairs, because they're watching the same thing. You can watch it down there. They wanted to be relieved. They wanted to go back to base. They've been there for 24 hours. They just wanted to get out of here. Kind of give you an idea of what it is like for 24 hours down there. When we go down, you'll kind of get a feeling. It's not because you're in a self-contained, you're in this place and you just want to get out. It's just, there's a lot of stress involved. So let's go back here. I just kind of wanted to just show this room. When I was talking to you about a picture of the squadrons, we're at Delta, which is a flight within the 66 Missile Squadron. There's 5 launch control facilities, and then each launch control facility, which is a flight, has 10 missiles they're responsible for. So the park was able, or this base, and then the park picked it up, was able to preserve Delta 1 and Delta 9. So Delta 9, when you go out, if you haven't been there, it really looks like a Minuteman 2 hanging there. I will tell you that. I'm not telling you that just so you feel good. It literally looks like a Minuteman 2 hanging there when they were. But I know that it's deactivated and it's not real. And then the work cage that you can kind of see, if you don't see that, and the door wouldn't be halfway open, but it looks really cool. So within this squadron, the reason why there's 5 launch control facilities with 5 capsule crews is, so do you think you have to push a button to launch missiles? You guys probably have always thought, well, you push a button, or you hear that, you have to turn keys.
Right.
In order to turn keys, obviously you have had to have gotten permission, not permission, you would have gotten messages that you validated, authenticated, that came ultimately from the President of the United States through the National Command Authority. And Delta 1, I go ahead and I put in a turn keys with my deputy. we have to do it within a certain time, and when we get down to the capsule and you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. There needs to be another capsule that does the same thing. And if you're turning keys, you better be sure that you've got what you're supposed to. Now, when you do turn keys is when you're in the missile procedures trainer. Never did it whenever I came out on alert, because if I did, we wouldn't be here. But in the missile procedures trainer, if you turn keys and nobody else did, you probably just crit it out, and that's the end. You're in big time trouble. But most likely somebody else is putting one in. So you have 2 key turns, and then everybody's putting in key turns, and you'll see it, and you'll see all the things launch off. When did you ever do that? When you're in a trainer ride. Never did that on alert. So that's what you would do every trainer ride. So you have to have 2 crews that do that. So there's controls there, and then also you have to have what are called enable unlock codes, and I'll show you the enable panel where those codes have to go in, and that has to come within a message. And it's not here. I'll show you when we get downstairs. The capsule that we're about to go into is down 32 feet. This is the elevator shaft we're going to go down. When we go by the 16,000 pound blast door, we're going to go where I'm going to ask you to duck your head. That's called the tunnel junction, and then we'll be in this egg-shaped thing. And then within the egg-shaped thing, which this guy is sitting in, it's called an acoustical enclosure. When we see it, you'll see that it's hanging. This one's shored to the floor since it's just sitting there. It's not hanging from the wall. And then this is the rebar that they have around that. It's a foot of concrete with that rebar wrapped around it, and then a 1/4 to 3/4 inch of steel plate. This is not designed for a direct hit. If a direct hit comes in, you're gone. A nuke probably could put 350-foot crater in the ground. This is 32 feet. So depending on where that nuke hit and how big that 350-foot crater is, you could either be gone or you could survive it. And that's where the soft support building is gone. When I was talking about the HF, we'll talk, she's messing around with that here, but we'll see that when we go down. When you would come in, talk to the flight security controller, show them your ID, and then you would walk over to the cook, order your lunch, get a pop from the machine, and then go downstairs. I didn't hang out and watch TV with the guys. So my experience was the time I stayed overnight that one time, and the time that I was going through training 2 or 3 different times. And the deputies I had were new, so I'm familiar with the top side from experience. And then just things that happen over my 4 years that they can relate to, like the Challenger thing. Challenger, I'll never forget that. Let's come in here. And then this door, so both of these doors would be closed. This is the phone that goes directly to the Launch Control Center or Capsule Crew. The phone is called the SCC, so when we go downstairs, you'll see a button that'll say SCC, and that is the phone directly to the flight security controller. So say I'm getting ready to go downstairs, or my partner Joe, when that time I was at golf, he's on the phone, we're ready to go downstairs. How does the capsule crew downstairs know that who's upstairs is a good guy? So before you go downstairs, you establish what is known as a VCN, or a visitor control number. The visitor control number is just a 2-digit number. As I recall, your flight security controller would have a decode or would have a document, and so would you. And you would just say, what page are you on? Or where are you at? And then they would go, I'm here, and then they would give the VCN, and it would 99% of, I don't think I remember getting a bad one. You would get a good VCN, you would go to the back of the capsule, and you would buzz the door. There was no key or lock that you could get in. This was electromagnetically controlled from downstairs. So you'd buzz the door would open up, they would leave it open. And I'll talk a little bit more about this when we come upstairs, but let's come on in here. So as you come in, you're going directly to the elevator. And can you press D? Yes. I actually asked somebody to press the U, and it just went, I'm sorry, wrong letter. It was the first time I did for that. It was a couple of days ago. It was my first tour of coming back, because last year we didn't do any tours downstairs. So when we get off this, we're going to be walking towards where the blast door is. You'll notice the decor on the blast door is the required 30 minutes, delivery in 30 minutes, so it's real popular. When I stayed overnight, one of the things that the maintenance crew had to do, because they had, since they were at a launch facility, they had to authenticate. So they needed to bring those code pages and they had to give them to the capsule crew because maintenance teams and capsule crews were B-side code handlers when it came to authenticating, whereas the cops were A-side. So they couldn't just give the cop, here's my codes, hold on to them until the next day. So they had to come downstairs to give this crew, and I said, I'm gonna come down with you. So I came down with them, and primarily I just wanted to see what it was like on the other side. So this door was closed, and I could hear the crew member on the other side. If you want to come around over here, you can see where the controls are to open these pins. There's 6 on each side, and they just pneumatically open them up, pump this up, and then you could hear them opening or closing. Wow. The door is 16,000 pounds, and as a reference, a Minuteman 2 sitting on the ring is 70,000 pounds. It takes 60 pounds of force to open this, and once you start pushing on it, you immediately grab it because it's got a lot of mass, and the more it goes, the faster it goes, the harder it's going to get to stop the momentum of it. So if you didn't do that, and it was not unusual for somebody who was new doing it the first time to have it boom up against that. So the bumper was there for a purpose, and then this kit is called a breakout kit. In the event that the crew, something was wrong, the FM could actually break into this. It takes about an hour to do that. But you would say, well, what happens if it's somebody else that's trying to break in? You have a latch right here that you could put up and nobody's going to get through that. I believe it's 1/4-inch steel plate with grout that holds all of this together, which is what makes up the weight. It is designed for blast pressure overblast. So when this door closes, you literally could feel the overpressure, and you could feel the overpressure when you're opening it up. We would be going in real time into a no-loan zone. A no-loan zone is a nuclear area which requires 2-person control or 2-man concept mandatory, which means that you would have to be knowledgeable about what the other person's doing and know whether they're tampering with something. So that's why there was 2-person control. There were some documents that were in this capsule that required 2-officer control, and I believe that's the reason why there were 2 officers that were crew members. In the Titan weapon system, there were 4 members, 2 were officers and 2 were enlisted personnel. So that was kind of a different makeup. So let's go ahead inside. When you go inside, we're going to go through the tunnel junction I was showing you upstairs. There's a pad in the event that you're not listening to me and you hit your head, but please duck your head as you go through here. If you guys could come in here, be careful when you walk across. You'll see a rail here. Don't want to trip over that. If you do, you would not be the first person to do that. Here's the emergency air conditioning unit. See all the cabling. There's air coming through here, and you can feel it and make it for so much colder situation. So these are all this is all comm equipment, and if you ever heard, oh, our weapon system is so old, these are the 5¼ inch floppies. This is called SAC, or Strategic Air Command Digital Network. I think it's still in use today to some degree. The reason why these panels are removed is because they were key generators and had seriously top secret stuff in it. This is me in 1985. I was 22 years old, standing right where you're standing. Boom, right there, to get an idea. And if you see the picture, you can see I'm wearing a gun. It was a really old school looking 38 special, and they got rid of that after a couple years later. It's like, why do we need to wear guns? We're wearing guns because the code components that are in here required control. Whenever there was somebody that came in the room or came in the LCC, and then it was eventually like, I don't think we need that. There's enough security topside, so you don't need that. So that was the purpose in that, and then this is kind of the uniform of its day, and you can see in the back the blast door well in the back behind us. You also see hanging, I was talking about authenticating when you're out on the site. You used to, as a crew member, before you could come downstairs, you would have to authenticate, and that's what these pouches are. You would just wear them around your neck and you would have your code pages in it. This is the last lock that I used back in the day in 1989, April of 89. And I had this, and I actually started using it to lock my bike up in my shed, and I decided I probably shouldn't do that. I was S201, was my crew. So I was talking to you a little bit where you would get these messages, these test messages. Skybird, this is a test of the primary loading system backdoor circuitry. This is what it would sound like, although I don't remember it sounding this loud. Skybird, this is a test of the primary loading system backdoor circuitry. Acknowledge. Okay, you would have to get on your phone, press this button, OPR, because you're on this row, hit LCC, and Echo, who's the squadron command post, would query the squadron to see who got that message. Echo would then have to get on EWO2 and query the other SCPs, or squadron command posts, and Kilo, which is the alternate command post, would have a red phone right up here, and that's where they would press an act button to acknowledge to the numbered Air Force. I was talking to you upstairs about the enable unlock codes. This is the enable panel, and that's where you would thumb in the unlock codes, providing you got that and you authenticated the message and did some other things with some things that you would have in here. We called them tickets. They were not cookies. They didn't break open. You had to tear them open. And these required 2-officer control. And they would go right up in here. And the other thing that would be in here would be a key. The deputy's key. So you would have 2 of these in there, one for the deputy and one for the commander. And so here's the deputy's key. And then the commander's key is right here. And you can see the distance is 12 feet away. In order to turn keys, you would have to key turn within 2 seconds. But the thing that's really critical is the deputy's key is spring loaded. So it's not like I could turn this and run and hold that. It takes a lot more pressure to turn. We sell the keys. They're not real. They're just souvenirs back in the visitor center. And the deputy's key has got a little bit more of a piece onto it because it literally takes a lot more pressure to turn it. You would not know that because you've not experienced it, but I'm just kind of putting it into your mind. So in a key turn scenario where I'm in a missile procedures trainer, I would say, based on the time and when we're supposed to turn keys, deputy hands on keys, 3, 2, 1, turn keys. We would turn them, and you have to do it within 2 seconds. And then you would hold it for about 4 seconds. So I say 3, 2, 1, turn keys, release, and then you would have gotten a ELC, an execute launch command printout on this printer. And then if we're turning keys, everybody else in the squadron would have been turning keys, and then this panel would start lighting up. So in the message, when you had done some procedures, you would have sent out what is known as a PLCA. And the PLCA is essentially telling the missiles what they're going to do. Where you would erect an antenna. This is antenna hard number 1. That's what you typically run, and there were 4 backups. Different things like that. If I was talking to the Airborne Launch Control Center, I would punch in my UHF and I would have a call sign. They put call signs. There was a book that was classified that you would look up your call sign. Bongo 25, this is Georgia or whatever. I always got a kick out of it because I thought it was really cool to be able to talk to somebody on the radio. So when you had the opportunity to do that, it was pretty neat. Here's the primary alerting system speakers. Jokingly, some people will say you could not turn those down. I don't remember them being very loud. But I mean, they were audible enough that if you were back on the toilet, you definitely could hear it. And I'll say that because the toilet's about 25 feet away. Right about here where you're standing is a diesel generator, not diesel generator, but a motor generator, and this is the sound. I mean, it wasn't that loud because there was other things. You could hear the air going through the racks. especially before this was up, you could literally hear it. And of course you could put your hand up to it and you could feel it, and it was the coolest thing. Okay. You press the U.
You sure? What does books to be burned mean in this checklist?
So when I was talking about a VCN, that was a book, once you used it up, you had to destroy it. And you were pretty much, well, the VCN book, that particular book, which was golden color, you knew when you ran out of it. Maintenance teams around on site, depending on what pages they were on, it might vary. So you would get a call from the squadron command post saying, destroy this particular book, and everybody had to do it. I only had to do it one time, and I was glad because it was a pain to go out in that burn barrel and burn it.
Oh, literally burn it.
Sure, everything. Oh, literally, you had to put it in that barrel that's out there. It looks like a bigger machine. You can see there's a clearing pit, and then behind they had in the day M16s and M203 or whatever it is with a grenade launcher attached to it. This piece of equipment is a sensing device for the Higgs cable. There was something similar to this at each launch facility, and every LCF had one as well.